Hi and welcome to Mark's Motivational Podcast for another Authors Tuesday. Today I'm delighted to be joined by another great author, Pam Lecky. So I'm delighted to be joined by you today, Pam. Thanks a lot for joining me.
Well, thanks for inviting me on, and hello to your listeners. Thank you.
Thank you. So would you like to start the podcast just to tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and the books you've written, please? Would be a great start.
Sure, yeah. Okay, well, my name's Pam Lecky. I was born in Dublin and still live here. Married with 3 kids, and I worked for a utility company up to about a year ago when I finally took the plunge and decided to write full time. So my writing journey kind of began in 2015 when I published my first book. So that was a standalone book. It was historical because it was kind of mystery, involved Fenians and 2 Irish sisters who inherit an estate in the UK, and the kind of prejudices they come up against, and also the kind of shenanigans that their relatives have been up to as well. So that was my first book, and it did really well. I was very lucky. It got shortlisted for the Carousel Aware Prize and longlisted by the Historical Novel Society. So that kind of encouraged me to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
So then I started writing some short stories because I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do next. And I found writing the short stories really honed my skills as a writer, because, you know, when you have a very definite word limit and you have to, you know, stick to that, and every word counts. So I think that really helped my writing journey hugely. So then I was very lucky to sign with an agent, and the book that I had submitted to her, it went out on submission in the UK. There was a little bit of interest for it, but none of the publishers jumped really. So in the end, I decided to self-publish it. So that was the first in my Lucy Lawrence mystery series, which is set in the late Victorian era and features Lucy Lawrence, who manages to find trouble wherever she goes. So those books, there's been 3 published now so far, and they do really, really well. And I love writing them. So I'm hoping to a 4th book probably next year. But in the meantime, while I was doing all of that, I very luckily got a contract with HarperCollins, their imprint Avon Books UK.
Great.
So for them, I'm writing World War II espionage, but it's with an Irish twist. So
interesting.
Very enjoyable. It was a bit of a challenge because, you know, at some points I was trying to write books set in 1880 and 1940, so it was kind of, you had to keep the 2 separate. But so it was good fun, and as I say, I've really enjoyed working with them, and I've just signed another contract for 2 more books with them. So it's going very well.
Great stuff. That's brilliant, Pam. And what's the name of the books for people to get them? What's the name of the books?
The first book was The Beau's Inheritance. And then the Lucy Lawrence mysteries, the first book in the series is No Stone Unturned. Mm-hmm. And that those Lucy Lawrence books are available exclusively on Amazon. And then the World War II books, the first book is Her Secret War, and they're available pretty much everywhere. You can get them in Eason's, you can get them in Apple Books, Kobo, Nook, wherever you get your books, really, you'll get those. So
that's brilliant. Because if you want to share the links to your books, I can put them on the show notes for people to find as well. That'd be great.
Mm-hmm.
Brilliant. And where did the journey begin for yourself, Pam, with your writing? Have you always been a writer yourself, or where did the journey start?
I was really predominantly a reader, I suppose. I was an only child, so I had a lot of time on my own, I suppose, and I was very lucky in that my father was a great reader and really encouraged me. Like one of my first memories is going to Marino Library and getting my little card. You know, so that was really a great foundation, and he loved history in particular. So between that and then introducing me to kind of classic golden age authors such as Dorothy Sayers, Agatha Christie. I just loved those. So I suppose, yeah, that was kind of a foundation. Now, I did write poetry as a teenager, but you know, that's stuff that's best never seen by anyone. And then I worked a little bit on a kind of a community magazine for a bit, but then life kind of took over, to be honest, and I was busy and I was having kids, and you know, it was only actually when I was on career break after my third child that I decided to maybe have another go, and wrote. I said, well, it was more a challenge to myself, I suppose. I wanted to see, could I complete an entire novel? So with no expectation of publishing at all, I just sat down and just started writing, and I absolutely loved it. I was totally addicted after that. And again, that will never see the light of day because it was pretty awful, but you know, the bug had got me at that stage. So I think it was probably a year later that I actually sat down and started to write The Bow's Inheritance. And of course, then I didn't really know what to do next. And I was very lucky in that I spotted Vanessa Fox O'Loughlin was running a self-publishing course in the Irish Writers' Centre. So I went along to that just to try and get some information. And I knew then when I came out from that day, I could do it, because I didn't even know there was such a thing as print on demand, or that I could, you know, just upload a file and I'd have a Kindle ebook there. So that was really brilliant. And once I found an editor, then I was away. Absolutely, you know, it was great.
Yeah. So like you kind of started off with the self-publishing route. Is that how it went? And then you found like a publisher then. Did you find it difficult at the time to get a publisher at the start?
Well, I think what happened to me at the start was I wrote The Bow's Inheritance, and there were a lot of issues with that manuscript that I didn't realize were issues. I sent it out to loads of agents and of course got nothing but rejections. So then I kind of felt, well, I've burned my bridges. So I felt at the time self-publishing was probably my only option. So that's kind of really how I fell into that, you know, and it's been quite a journey. But I have to say, I love the indie community. They're just so supportive. And I have the most fantastic friends now through just, you know, interacting with different authors and that, you know. So yeah, it's quite a change. I mean, going with the traditional publisher, it's a different experience. But I'm learning all the time, you know, so I just love it.
Oh, it's great, you know, because I understand, because a lot of people, it's a great kind of window into kind of the writing world, isn't it, to self-publish, isn't it, Pam? Yeah,
it is, and you know, you'll learn very quickly when you make mistakes, you know, but there's always somebody who'll help you, and there's always somebody who'll have the answer to the question you have. So you might feel like a total idiot. You go onto Facebook, into one of the writing groups, and say, how do you do this? And you know, people will just help you out. So,
they're great.
Yeah,
great.
I think it's fantastic. Yeah.
And would you have pictures of your books? Do you have your books there for people to see? Because this will be on YouTube as well. So if you want to show your books, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. You just bear with me now 1 second.
No problem, Pam. Thank you.
Okay. So this is my first one, The Bow's Inheritance. Okay, so that's the one about the Fenians. Then this is the first Lucy Lawrence book. So I don't know whether are they coming out backwards? I'm not sure.
No, that's good. No stone unturned,
So they all have the little Lucy kind of logo up the top. So I won't show you all of those, so because we'll be here all night. And so the books with Avon Harper Collins. This is the first one, Her Secret War, and this book actually starts with the North Strand bombing in 1941. And it's the survivor of that bombing then who goes off to family in England, and then ends up working for Supermarine, who designed and built Spitfires. But she kind of gets entangled in espionage, and that's kind of the start of her journey. So that's that book.
Yeah.
And then this book came out in April, the sequel, Her Last Betrayal. And in this particular one, Sarah, who's the heroine, ends up trying to track down some IRA fugitives in the UK, along with an American Secret Service agent. So that's that one. And the third book in this series will be published next year. I'm actually currently working on the manuscript at the moment. So
Brilliant. No, they sound really, really good, Pam. I'm looking forward to reading them myself. So that's really, really good. Well done. And as well as that, who would you say, or sorry, just one question before that, sorry. Who done the illustrations for you? They're really good. The covers look really, really good.
Right, okay. Well, for my very first book, this is actually the second cover. The first cover I did myself, which was a big mistake, really not great. So it was actually a girl, I found her on Facebook. Victoria Cooper is her name. So she sells covers online, but she was like, the image I bought was actually just the girl. And when I explained to her the story, she was able to add in the background, which is an old house, and just to make it a little bit more dramatic and mysterious looking. So I was really lucky with that. And then for my Lucy books, in this case, I'm working with a designer in the US. She's fabulous. Her name is Kathy Helms, and her company is called Avalon Graphics. And again, I have chosen the images myself, and then she does up the lovely fonts. And as you might be able to see here, this book is about stolen sapphires. So she's used a sapphire in the title here, which I thought was really clever.
That's brilliant,
and she's done something similar with each one. I'll show you the other two, actually.
Yeah, they're really good. I love the covers. They're amazing. They're really good.
Yeah, so this is the second book, which is set in Egypt. And so you can see here, there's a dagger. So I think you can guess what happens to somebody when there's a dagger there. And then the third book, this one came out in December. So this is all about the art world. And again, she was able to, you can see the two little paintbrushes there. So it's really clever. So again, I had chosen that image, which is actually a castle up in Scotland. But
brilliant. Yeah, they're really, really good, aren't they? Really good, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm really happy with them now, I have to say. Now, with my traditional publisher, I don't really have much say in the title or the cover, but other than this is pretty much what I was shown. However, they had her in I think it was a green or a blue coat, and it just didn't stand out at all. So the only suggestion I made was to change the color, which they did.
Great stuff,
so, yeah. But I love the old car. I don't know if you can see the car. The 1940s car in it. I thought that was brilliant.
That's brilliant. Yeah, it's really good. I love the covers. They're brilliant. Yeah, thanks a lot for sharing that for everybody. That's brilliant.
Yeah, no problem.
Who would you say kind of is your main influences that in your writing? If you could name one or two that kind of influenced you and kind of how could you say inspired you?
Well, I suppose you're not going to be too surprised. My first love is historical fiction, but I also love crime. So I guess, gosh, I mean, I love Jane Austen, even though I don't write romance as such. Agatha Christie, obviously. Dorothy L. Sayers is a huge influence for me. I love the Lord Peter Wimsey books. I don't know how many times I've read them, but anyway, it's ridiculous. Also, when I was a teenager, I would have read an awful lot of Georgette Hare. And I know a lot of people might kind of possibly haven't even heard of her, but she is the most fantastic writer. Her characterizations are just fabulous. And she was also a meticulous researcher. And that really impressed me, and it's, as it happens, I love research and I love researching my books. So they're probably the biggest. Then P.D. James would be another influence. Ruth Rendell, all of those kind of. I love the kind of the intellectual angle of crime, as opposed to, I'm not really interested in blood and gore and, you know, bodies everywhere.
Yeah.
It's more working it out. And plus, I suppose those writers were writing at a time when forensics was fairly basic. So, you know, your detective, he had to use his brain as opposed to the lab to solve the crime. So that kind of appeals to me as well, you know.
I'd say you love Sherlock Holmes and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, stop. I do, yeah.
that's what came to mind immediately. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah. Actually, I have a very good friend, William Todd is his name. He's an American, but he writes Sherlock Holmes stories. Now, normally I'd be kind of, whoa, if it's not Conan Doyle, I don't want to read it. But this guy, it's just brilliant. He can he writes so similarly to Conan Doyle. It's incredible. So if anyone's a Sherlock Holmes fan, look out for this guy's books. They're on Amazon and they're really, really good.
Sounds brilliant. Yeah, sounds really good. Thanks for sharing. I must have a look at that, because you can't, because watching the movies growing up and all that, and the show is incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But no, this is great. Can you talk about where you went this weekend? Was a really interesting thing. I was just Googling earlier on.
Oh, right, yeah. Well, I suppose I've been trying to go for the last 3 years to Harrogate Crime Writers Festival. So it's
really
the
interesting.
crime writing world. It's the festival to go to. It's 4 days, very intensive, very good actually. So you'd have lots of panels with authors. So with the likes of Val McDermott, Anne Cleeves, Michael Connolly, John Connolly. They're just to name a few. So you'll get the really big names at that particular festival. And then it's kind of a networking. I suppose for writers who go, it's more the networking, but you get a lot of readers there as well, which is lovely. I mean, I was going over on the stupid o'clock flight on Thursday morning, and I met two lovely ladies who were readers. They were going over just, you know, and I met them on the way back, and we were all kind of commiserating on how tired we were. But it was very, very good. I'd highly recommend it for anyone who's writing crime. There's also another brilliant one, which is Crime Fest, which is held in Bristol. Slightly smaller, more kind of intimate conference, but really, really good as well. So there's lots of options. And then there's Murder One, which Vanessa Fox O'Loughlin organises here. She writes as Sam Blake as well, actually. So I don't know whether people know that. But she's heavily involved in that particular one. So there's other, you know, options there, but certainly I'd go back again. Maybe not every year, but because recovery time's too long.
No, look great. No, I had to ask you about that because it looked really, really good, really interesting. Yeah, great stuff. Yeah, so that's great. Can I ask you as well, for your writing, do you have kind of some kind of system you use, like a certain amount? You kind of mentioned earlier on about the words, kind of the word count, kind of keeping you on track. But do you have that kind of system that you use with your writing, Pam? Like, what kind of strategy would you use?
Right. Well, I suppose when I gave up my job was very deadline driven, and I suppose I was super organized, and I assumed that would spill over into my writing. But unfortunately not. It's a funny thing when you're at home all day, there's so many distractions.
Yeah.
So the last while what I've been trying to do is keep my writing to Monday to Friday. I set myself a kind of a target when I'm working on a first draft, which is the bit I find the most difficult. So I would, like, the target isn't huge, it's maybe 1,500 words, but it would be 1,500 words that have been possibly edited a little bit as well. So it's not just writing straight out. And so that kind of works for me. It motivates me, and I keep a spreadsheet then to see how I'm doing, you know, against a target.
Okay.
I suppose that's the other thing about being traditionally published as well, is that you do have deadlines and you have to meet them. So there's nothing like a deadline,
No,
get you
no, no.
motivated. Uh,
Yeah. No, that's really good because I have a lot of people on the podcast have different strategies they use. So
sure.
that sounds really good to kind of
Mm,
have some kind of something to look at, even a spreadsheet to see how you're going. So that's great. That's great.
yeah,
Great for anybody that's starting off writing or whatever to kind of see a way to do that. Yes, thanks
yeah.
very much for that, Pam. That's brilliant. And as well as that, uh, kind of what kind of motivates you, keeps you motivated? Like I suppose, especially over the last 2 years, the way things have been with COVID.
Mm,
What would you say the main thing kept you motivated with your writing?
gosh, that's a hard question.
Sorry for putting you in the spot.
um, I suppose it's actually strange. Like I finished the first draft of a manuscript a few weeks ago, and I decided to take a break.
Mm.
And something, every day I was kind of, I was actually writing. That it's like an addiction. It's very bizarre. Even when you
Yeah.
think you need to take a break, there's
Mm.
still ideas, and I'm still I'm starting to think, well, they're probably going to start looking for new ideas for new books from me. Maybe I should be, doing that. And so, yeah, it's never far from your head, which is,
Mm.
I don't know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, but it just seems to be the way it is.
So it's basically your love for writing kind of keeps you motivated and keeps you going.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it is,
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
um, and plus readers, they come back and, like, I was laughing. I'd only just published the third Lucy Lawrence book, and a lady emailed me, "When's the next one coming out?" And I'm,
Great stuff.
oh my God, I've only just published this. But
Yeah.
that's wonderful. And when people
Mm.
email you or they leave the lovely reviews, it just keeps you going, and
Brilliant.
like there are
Yeah.
days when it's not going well and you kind of think, why am I doing this? Why am I putting myself through this? And then you get something like that and you say, right, that's why I'm doing it. It's
Mm.
when you know what you're doing is giving enjoyment to people and it's entertaining them. That's really all you need. Well,
Oh, great.
that's
Yeah.
all I
Great
need.
point.
Yeah.
No, great point. Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Yeah, I agree 100%. Yeah. And are you involved, Pam, in any writers groups? Because there's Irish inkies that I'm involved in, ink slingers that they met online over the last 2 years through
Hmm.
COVID and that came worldwide. Have you been involved in stuff like that yourself?
I
Writers
haven't
groups?
actually, no. I was involved in a conference. It was an online writers conference, all right,
Okay. Yeah.
earlier this year. But no, other than that, to be honest, when my deadlines are just back to back, I'm kind of, my
Yeah.
time
I
is
know what
quite
you're saying.
limited.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, yeah, but it is a good thing because anybody that's listening, like you have half an hour to work off a prompt, so that kind of really keeps you going.
it's
Like in the
really
stories,
scary.
but the stories come out of it is unbelievable from people. Really, really, really cool.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah. No, sometimes that's all you need. As I said, deadlines are great motivators. I mean, I was submitting synopsis to my publisher, and there was one that they weren't too keen on. And I said, okay, I'll go off and I'll have a think about it. And they said, well, actually, no, we need it by tomorrow.
Oh
So
God.
I had to come up with a book idea in a day. And I did it.
Mm,
But yeah, I haven't written it yet,
yeah,
mind you. But so I don't know how it'll
yeah,
turn out. But
yeah.
yeah,
So you work well on deadlines.
I seem to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Probably not good for my blood pressure, though.
No, no. This has been absolutely great talking to you, Pam. Thanks a lot for coming on.
Oh, thank you. I've really
Yeah.
enjoyed it. Yeah.
Yeah, and don't forget to share the links to your books for people to find. And
Sure.
I love to hear they're available in Easton's as well. Like to keep them in the shops. That's a great thing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, it was a big thrill to see my book in Easton's for the first time.
Yeah.
And Dubray actually as well in Grafton Street. They have
Oh,
well, they
great.
certainly have For Last Betrayal. I signed a few in there a few weeks back. So they may still
Oh,
have copies.
brilliant. That's great. Yeah, yeah. Now, is there anything else I haven't asked you, Pam, before we go that you'd like to share with anybody, or what's
Oh.
next, and anything next for yourself? What's
Well, as I
next?
say, I'm writing sequels to my two series, I suppose. Gosh, yeah, I don't know that I'm hoping to actually take a bit of a breather now, because it's been I've been over to London 3 times in the last couple of months, just with various different things. So I'm traveled out. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, there is the Dublin Writers Conference coming up early September. I don't know if people are aware of it. And that's actually quite a good conference to go to, particularly if you're an aspiring writer. There's always very good advice and panels. Very good. I think it's beginning of September that's on. And I think Murder One is on later in the year as well. So I'm hoping to go to that. So yeah, and just for anyone who's thinking of writing, just do it. Don't be too caught up in technique and what other people are doing. Just experiment, just write, and hopefully something wonderful comes out.
Yeah, that's brilliant advice, Pam. Thanks very much. Brilliant advice. Yeah. So what I might do is try and find links to the writers' conference as well, and put them on the show notes for people to find.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. So listen, I wish you all the success going forward with your endeavors and your books and your writing. They sound amazing.
Thanks very much. Yeah. And just, if anyone who's read many of my books and left reviews, just to say a big thank you. Really means a lot. So
great stuff. Yeah. Okay, so that was Pam Lecky, everybody. Thanks a lot for tuning in to today's podcast. Mark's motivational podcast, Authors Tuesday. So join us again for another podcast next week, Authors Tuesday. Till then, take care. Thanks, Pam.
Thank you.
Take care.